Hey, what's up guys? In today's video I'll be showing you all the essential Cypher camera spots for the new patch 1.05. I will be leaving the timestamps for all the maps down in the description, so check that out. Before getting the video, I want to let you guys know that I do live stream on YouTube pretty much every day, so you can come and check me out. With that said, let's get into the video. So for this camera spot, you need to take a run up and jump. As you're near the generator, you need to crouch. So once you're on top of this one, make sure you plant your camera as shown in the video. This is a really good camera because you can get a glimpse of people who are entering from gelato, and it's a really even good retake camera. Say enemies have already planted the bomb, it's a really good retake camera as well. For the next camera shot, make sure you're standing in the same place and place it on that corner as shown here. And this is a really good camera, and make sure when you're placing this camera not to ping the enemies because it usually gets destroyed. It's one of my favorite camera spot and I use it a lot in ranked matches. So you'll get a glimpse of people rushing into A side, people pushing from A trees, and even you can use it as a post plant camera which gives you a glimpse of heaven. This next camera is more of a defensive camera. Say or your enemy team is picking on your cameras, this is a really good defensive one to hold. Usually enemies don't notice this one. Here. This camera spot is more of an offensive camera spot to take a peek on people who are contesting for the ult top, and you'll get an early information of people who are gonna enter A. Now let's talk about the mid cameras at Ascent. So for this is more of attackers camera, so make sure you jump while placing this and you get an early access of people who are contesting for mid. And this next camera is a camera which is one of the best mid camera for Ascent, as well as it's more for defenders, or if you're already got your access to A site, you can use this camera to see if anyone is pushing into a site via mid. This next camera spot is more of a retake camera. Say your enemies have already planted in A. If you want to see how many people are there, you can use this camera to get an info of how many people are in sight. But make sure you practice this camera spot, it's because it's a little difficult to get. The next camera spot is more of a defender's camera spot. Make sure you jump on the barrel and make sure you place your camera on this wall. You get an early access of people who are contesting mid or people who are pushing A via cubby. Here. This next camera spot is more for attackers who are trying to push into B site. You can place your cam like this, and with the help of this camera you can watch your team's flank. Try not to ping your enemies because most of the time it gets destroyed. The next camera spot is more for attackers who are trying to rush into B site. Make sure you jump and place your camera. You will get a peek into people who are playing near mid, and you'll get a small glimpse of people who are playing inside too. So this camera spot is an alternative version of the previous one. So while placing this, make sure you jump on the box and jump and place it through the window, and this covers a whole more area than the previous one. Now let's look at some B-side defenders camera. Make sure you jump and place this camera on the board. This is one of my favorite camera for Ascent B side because many of the attackers don't look up top to destroy this camera, and it stays way longer than expected, and it covers the whole area of B. Here. For this next camera spot, make sure you stand at this place and jump and place it. This gives you a peek of people who are rushing into B. One small tip while using this camera is try not to mark your enemies because enemies will easily get to know where your camera is at. For this next camera spot, make sure you aim at that place, and when it turns blue, jump and place your camera. You'll get an early peek of people who are rushing into B, and this camera is really good because it covers whole area of B. This next camera spot is more of post plant camera spot. So make sure you aim at this and place it. You'll get a sight of people coming from defender spawn, B main and B market. And another variation of this is make sure you aim at that and place it. You'll get a clear view of people coming from mid, people coming from defender spawn, and people coming from main. Now let's look at few camera spots for split, starting with Spilt B. Make sure on the box, make sure at the edge of it, and jump and place this camera. The best part of this cam is it spots the enemy before they spot the cam, and it's one of my favorite one which I use for my ranked matches, and it really goes good because it can even trigger my one-way setup. This next camera spot is a more aggressive one to get early information of people who are rushing into B side. One small tip is try not to ping the enemies because it usually gets destroyed. This next camera spot is more of attackers one. If you want to get information of people playing at B, this camera will really come in handy. If you're playing Cypher in mid, this camera spot will help you. As it can give you a whole view on mid. And for a map like Split, mid is very small and you can usually use your Cypher cam to get vision on it. And there's another variation where you place it towards the edge and it works like the previous. This next camera spot is for attackers to get an early access of mid. You can jump and place it on the tree and you can see people who are at the cables at mid. And even if the camera lasts, you can even use it as a close span camera. Now let's look at few Spilt A camera spots. Go to heaven and aim at the banner, jump and place it. This gives you an early information of people who are rushing into A site. One small tip is try not to ping enemies because it usually gets destroyed. Say if the previous ones people started picking on that, you can use this camera spot, and this one is a defensive version of earlier one and it will indicate your allies showing that people are rushing A. This next camera spot is more of a post plan camera because it gives you a really good insights of people who are coming to retake the site, and it can give you even a clear sight of people who are pushing you from screens. Now let's see few attackers camera spot. Make sure you jump on the boxes. While placing this camera, make sure you jump and place it. It gives you a small peek into heaven, people playing at ramps, and if this camera stay longer, it can even be your flank camera. The second version of this one is to jump and place it on the banner. It gives you a little more insights of people playing at heaven, ramp, and again said, if it's not destroyed, it can be your flank camera. Now say if you want to see people who are contesting for ult top, this is a really good camera as you can see people who are just gonna push you from there. Now let's look at few camera spots for bind, starting with bind B. Jump onto this, then jump onto this box and aim at that panel and place a camera. This is one of my favorite camera spots which I use for all my comp matches. It gives you a small insights of people who are rushing from B long. So there is another version of this camera. Say enemies picked up on the previous one, you can use this one, place a camera, and this is more protected than the previous one as there's a ladder and people usually don't notice this camera spot. Talking about the second one, make sure you're standing on the same box, and once you're on that, go towards the edge, and once the camera turns blue, jump and place the camera. And this is another version. It gives you a sight of hookah, long. This next camera is one of my favorite post-plan camera because it gives you a whole axis of sight. At the same time, you can have a small insights of their defender spawn. So say people are coming from A to B, you can spot them easily. Moving on to the next camera, I call the hookah camera. This is one of a really good camera and people usually don't notice this one. Make sure you crouch while placing this camera, and it's more like a camera where people don't look up top to destroy it and you can hear the footsteps before even seeing them. Say if you're playing at hookah, this camera will come really in handy. Place it behind the sheets. It will get a small insight of people as they're playing there and people who are rushing in. So this next camera is for the attackers who want to rush into hookah. Make sure you jump and place on the teleporter so you'll get an early sight of people who are gonna contest you. This next camera is, say you didn't use the previous one, you can use this one to clear hookah and you'll get a small insights of people who are playing in the site.
Careful.
Let's say you're entering site B through B long, this camera spot will really come in handy as it will give you a whole insight of the whole site. Now let's look at few defender side camera spots for bind A. Go to the heaven and aim at that vent. Once it turns blue, place the camera. It gives you a whole access to the site. For the next camera spot, from the same spot, make sure you place it as high as possible, and this gives you an early access of people who are rushing from A shot and A bar, and again it gives you the whole access to the site. For this next camera spot, make sure you're standing on those blocks and jump and place this one. You will get an access of people who are rushing from A shot and who are running into lamps, and you'll get the access to the whole site. This next camera spot is more of attackers who want to get an early access of the site. Another version of this is placing it on the teleporter. You can see the whole site. So if you think the defenders are breaking the previous camera spot, you can use this one. This camera spot is more of a defensive one, but you'll get again early information of people who are playing inside. Now let's start with heaven A side. At A link there are these boxes. Make sure you're on top of it and jump and play this camera. It's one of a really good camera. You can use this as a retake camera. Say enemies if already planted, you can use this camera to get information about where the enemies are. For this next camera shot, make sure you're at heaven and place it on this rock. And this camera is a really good postman camera. You can place it and you'll get us early sight of people playing long shot or even link. For this next camera spot, make sure you're standing at this window. Slow walk up to the edge. Once you're done with that, aim your camera to this wall and place it as high as possible. This camera usually stays long and is one of the best defenders A side camera for heaven. Now let's look at few camera spots for defender side B heaven. Make sure you stand on the box and place on this one. This gives you access of all the three entrances to B. From the same place, make sure you aim there and place a camera. It covers all the entrances to B. At the same time, you'll get an early access of people who are rushing from mid windows. This next camera spot is for the attackers who are trying to rush C side via arm doors. So make sure you practice this camera spot in custom games because it's a little hard to get. But once you get it, you can get the intel of people who are playing inside it. Here. Now let's look at few camera spots for defender side at heaven C. So make sure you jump on this box and place your camera on the roof. So this camera goes between the cracks of the roof. I used this in the early rounds and this camera is really good, but if you start pinging the enemies, it's likely to get destroyed. For the next camera spot, make sure on the same box again. Now aim it to that wall. Once it turns blue, jump and place the camera. Now again, this camera will let you know if people are contesting with alt top, people who are hiding in cubby, and you can use this camera even for a post-plan situation. Again, from the same box, make sure you jump and play this camera. This is one of my recent favorite camera spot which I play on Heaven C side. Again, I can get an early access of people who are contesting with alt top, but in this camera I can see clearly people who are hiding in cubby, and again I have the whole access of C side. Now let's move on to the last camera spot. Make sure you aim at this place. Once it turns blue, place your camera. So among all the cameras which I showed in Heaven C side, this camera stays for longer as it camouflages in the background, and it's a really good camera. And that's it for the video, guys. I know these are not the only Cypher camera spots. If you guys know really good Cypher camera spots, my Discord link is down in the description. Do hit me up and send me your clips. I'll make sure I look into them. And yeah, if this video get enough recognition, I'm planning to make a series out of Cypher, like the tripwire spots and the one-way smokes. So yeah, be sure to like and sub if you guys enjoy the content. And I'm even planning to make content related to Killjoy, her abilities and how to play her. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And this is just a reminder, I do live stream on YouTube. Come and check me out. That's it. Hope you guys enjoy the video. If you did, drop a like and sub. Have a nice day. Peace out.